Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, just a stone's throw from the English Channel. We hope you're all safe, and we dedicate this reading to the devotees in Ukraine, hoping that they're safe. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Mahima Stotram from Krishna, Leela Stava by Srila Sanatana Goswami glorifies the Srimad-Bhagavatam. These are Sanatana Goswami's obeisances to the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kalidwan Doditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madhika Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nistadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin atini chochata kara hanamunchagadachin mam premna rit kantayokspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we reached the 7th chapter of the 2nd canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, scheduled incarnations with specific functions. And Lord Brahma is continuing to enlighten his son, his mind-born son, Narada Muni. Beginning with text 6. To exhibit his personal way of austerity and penance, he appeared in twin forms as Narayana and Nara in the womb of Murti, the wife of Dharma and the daughter of Daksha. Celestial beauties, the companions of Cupid, went to try to break his vows, but they were unsuccessful, for they saw that many beauties like them were emanating from him, the personality of Godhead. Purport. The Lord, being the source of everything that be, is the origin of all austerities and penances also. Great vows of austerity are undertaken by sages to achieve success in self-realization. Human life is meant for such tapasya, with the great vow of celibacy or brahmacharya. In the rigid life of tapasya, there is no place for association with women. And because human life is meant for tapasya, for self-realization, factual human civilization as conceived by the system of Sanatana Dharma, or the school of 4 castes and 4 orders of life, prescribes rigid disassociation from women in 3 stages of life. In the order of gradual cultural development, one's life may be divided into 4 divisions: celibacy, household life, retirement, and renunciation. During the first stage of life, up to 25 years of age, a man may be trained as a brahmachari under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, just to understand that woman is the real binding force in material existence. If one wants to get freedom from the material bondage of conditional life, he must get free from the attraction for the form of woman. Woman, or the fair sex, is the enchanting principle for the living entities, and the male form, especially in the human being, is meant for self-realization. The whole world is moving under the spell of womanly attraction, and as soon as a man becomes united with a woman, he at once becomes a victim of material bondage under a tight knot. The desires of lording it over the material world under the intoxication of a false sense of lordship specifically begin just after the man's unification with a woman. The desires for acquiring a house, possessing land, having children, and becoming prominent in society, the affection for community and the place of birth, and the hankering for wealth, which are all like phantasmagorias or illusory dreams, encumber a human being, and he is thus impeded in his progress towards self-realization, the real aim of life. A brahmachari, or a boy from the age of 5 years, I'll read that again. A brahmachari, or a boy from the age of 5 years, especially from the higher castes, namely from the scholarly parents, the brahmanas, administrative parents, kshatriyas, or mercantile or productive parents, vaishyas, is trained until 25 years of age under the care of a bona fide guru or teacher, and under strict observance of discipline, he comes to understand the values of life, along with taking specific training for a livelihood. The brahmachari is then allowed to go home and enter householder life, and get married to a suitable woman. But there are many brahmacharis who do not go home to become householders, but continue the life of Naishtika brahmacharis without any connection with a woman. This should be changed. They accept the order of sannyas, or the renounced order of life, knowing well that combination with a woman is an unnecessary burden that checks self-realization. Since sex desire is very strong at a certain stage of life, the guru may allow the brahmachari to marry. This license is given to the brahmachari who is unable to continue the way of Naishtika brahmacharya, and such discriminations are possible for the bona fide guru. A program of so-called family planning is needed. A householder who associates with a woman under scriptural restrictions after a thorough training in brahmacharya cannot be a householder like cats and dogs. Such a householder, after 50 years of age, would retire from the association of women as a vanaprastha to be trained to live alone without the association of a woman. When the practice is complete, the same retired householder becomes a sannyasi, strictly separate from women, even from his married wife. From his study of the whole scheme of disassociation from women, it appears that a woman is a stumbling block for self-realization, and the Lord appeared as Narayana to teach the principle of womanly disassociation with a vow in life. The demigods, being envious of the austere life of the rigid brahmacharis, would try to cause them to break their vows by dispatching soldiers of Cupid. But in the case of the Lord, it became an unsuccessful attempt when the celestial beauties saw that the Lord can produce innumerable such beauties by his mystic internal potency, and that there was consequently no need to be attracted by others externally. There is a common proverb that a confectioner is never attracted by sweetmeats. The confectioner, who is always manufacturing sweetmeats, has very little desire to eat them. Similarly, the Lord, by his pleasure potencies, can produce innumerable spiritual beauties and not be the least attracted by the false beauties of material creation. One who does not know alleges foolishly that Lord Krishna enjoyed women in his Rasa Leela in Vrindavan or with his 16,000 married wives at Dwarka. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 7. Great stalwarts like Lord Shiva can, by their wrathful glances, overcome lust and vanquish him. Yet they cannot be free from the overwhelming effects of their own wrath. Such wrath can never enter into the heart of him, the Lord, who is above all this. So how can lust take shelter in his mind? Purport. When Lord Shiva was engaged in severely austere meditation, Cupid, the demigod of lust, threw his arrow of sex desire. Lord Shiva, thus being angry at him, glanced at Cupid in great wrath, and at once the body of Cupid was annihilated. Although Lord Shiva was so powerful, he was unable to get free from the effects of such wrath. But in the behavior of Lord Vishnu, there is no incident of such wrath at any time. On the contrary, Bhrigu Muni tested the tolerance of the Lord by purposefully kicking his chest. But instead of being angry at Bhrigu Muni, the Lord begged his pardon, saying that Bhrigu Muni's foot might have been badly hurt because the Lord's chest is too hard. The Lord has the sign of Bhrigu Muni's foot, Bhrigu Pada, as the mark of tolerance. The Lord therefore is never affected by any kind of wrath. So how can there be any place for lust, which is less strong than wrath? When lust or desire is not fulfilled, there is the appearance of wrath. But in the absence of wrath, how can there be any place for lust? The Lord is known as Aptakama, or one who can fulfill his desires by himself. He does not require anyone's help to satisfy his desires. The Lord is unlimited, and therefore his desires are also unlimited. All living entities, but the Lord, are limited in every respect. How then can the limited satisfy the desires of the unlimited? The conclusion is that the absolute personality of Godhead has neither lust nor anger, and even if there is sometimes a show of lust and anger by the absolute, it should be considered an absolute benediction. Text 8. Being insulted by sharp words spoken by the co-wife of the king, even in his presence, Prince Dhruva, although only a boy, took to severe penances in the forest, and the Lord, being satisfied by his prayer, awarded him the Dhruva planet, which is worshipped by great sages, both upward and downward. Purport. When he was only 5 years old, Prince Dhruva, a great devotee and the son of Maharaj Uttanapad, was sitting on the lap of his father. His stepmother did not like the king's patting her stepson, so she dragged him out, saying that he could not claim to sit on the lap of the king because he was not born out of her womb. The little boy felt insulted by this act of his stepmother, nor did his father make any protest, for he was too attached to a second wife. After this incident, Prince Dhruva went to his own mother and complained. His real mother also could not take any step against this insulting behavior, and so she wept. The boy inquired from his mother how he could sit on the royal throne of his father, and the poor queen replied that only the Lord could help him. The boy inquired where the Lord could be seen, and the queen replied that it is said that the Lord is sometimes seen by great sages in the dense forest. The child prince decided to go into the forest to perform severe penances in order to achieve his objective. Prince Dhruva performed a stringent type of penance under the instruction of his spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni, who was specifically deputed for this purpose by the personality of Godhead. Prince Dhruva was initiated by Narada into chanting the hymn composed of 12 syllables, namely Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And Lord Vasudeva incarnated himself as Prishnigarbha, the personality of Godhead with 4 hands, and awarded the prince a specific planet above the 7 stars. Prince Dhruva, after achieving success in his undertakings, saw the Lord face to face and was satisfied that all his needs were fulfilled. The planet awarded to Prince Dhruva Maharaj is a fixed Vaikuntha planet, installed in the material atmosphere by the will of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. This planet, although within the material world, will not be annihilated at the time of devastation, but will remain fixed in its place. And because it is a Vaikuntha planet, never to be annihilated, it is worshipped even by the denizens of the 7 stars situated below the Dhruva planet, as well as by the planets which are even above the Dhruva planet. Maharshi Bhrigu's planet is situated above the Dhruva planet. So the Lord incarnated himself as Prishnigarbha just to satisfy a pure devotee of the Lord. And Prince Dhruva achieved this perfection simply by chanting the hymn mentioned above, after being initiated by another pure devotee, Narada. A serious personality can thus achieve the highest perfection of meeting the Lord and attain his objective simply by being guided by a pure devotee, who automatically approaches by dint of one's serious determination to meet the Lord by all means. The description of Prince Dhruva's activities can be read in detail in the 4th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Text 9. Maharaj Vena went astray from the path of righteousness, and the Brahmanas chastised him by the thunderbolt curse. By this King Vena was burnt with his own good deeds and opulence, and was en route to hell. The Lord, by his causeless mercy, descended as his son by the name of Prithu, delivered the condemned King Vena from hell, and exploited the earth by drawing all kinds of crops as produce. Purport. According to the system of Varnashram Dharma, the pious and learned Brahmanas were the natural guardians of society. The Brahmanas, by the learned labor of love, would instruct the administrator kings how to rule the country in complete righteousness, and thus the process would go on as a perfect welfare state. The kings, or the Kshatriyas, or the Kshatriya administrators, would always consult a council of learned Brahmanas. They were never autocratic monarchs. Scriptures like the Manu Samhita and other authorized books of the great sages were guiding principles for ruling the subjects, and there was no need for less intelligent persons to manufacture a code of law in the name of democracy. The less intelligent mass of people have very little knowledge of their own welfare, and as a child has very little knowledge of its future well-being. The experienced father guides the innocent child towards the path of progress, and the childlike mass of people needs similar guidance. The standard welfare codes are already there in the Manu Samhita and other Vedic literatures. The learned Brahmanas would advise the king in terms of those standard books of knowledge and with reference to the particular situation of time and place. Such Brahmanas were not paid servants of the king, and therefore they had the strength to dictate to the king on the principles of the scriptures. The system continued up to the time of Maharaj Chandragupta, and the Brahmana Chanakya was his unpaid prime minister. Maharaj Vena did not adhere to the principle of ruling, and he disobeyed the learned Brahmanas. The broad-minded Brahmanas were not self-interested, but looked to the interest of complete welfare for all the subjects. They wanted to chastise King Vena for his misconduct, and so prayed to the Almighty Lord as well as cursed the king. Long life, obedience, good reputation, righteousness, prospects of being promoted to higher planets, and the blessings of great personalities are all vanquished simply by disobedience to a great soul. One should strictly try to follow in the footsteps of great souls. Maharaj Vena became a king, undoubtedly due to his past deeds of righteousness, but because he willfully neglected the great souls, he was punished by the loss of all the above-mentioned acquisitions. In the Vamana Purāṇa, the history of Maharaj Vena and his degradation is fully described. When Maharaj Prithu heard about the hellish condition of his father, Vena, who was suffering from leprosy in the family of Amlecha, he at once brought the former king to Kurukshetra for his purification and relieved him of all sufferings. That's a detail I didn't remember. Maharaj Prithu, the incarnation of God, descended by the prayer of the Brahmanas to rectify the disorders of the earth. He produced all kinds of crops, but at the same time, he performed the duty of a son who delivers his father from hellish conditions. The word putra means one who delivers from hell, called put. That is a worthy son. Text 10. The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi, the wife of King Nabhi, and was known as Rishabhadev. He performed materialistic yoga to equibalance the mind. This stage is also accepted as the highest perfectional situation of liberation, wherein one is situated in oneself and is completely satisfied. Purport. Out of many types of mystic performances for self-realization, the process of Jata Yoga is also one accepted by authorities. This Jata Yoga involves practicing becoming like a dumb stone and not being affected by material reactions. Just as a stone is indifferent to all kinds of attacks and reattacks of external situations, similarly, one practices Jata Yoga by tolerating voluntarily infliction of pain upon the material body. Such yogis, out of many self-infliction methods, practice plucking out the hairs on their heads without shaving and without any instrumental help. But the real purpose of such Jata Yoga practice is to get free from all material affection and to be completely situated in the self. At the last stage of his life, Emperor Rishabhadev wandered like a dumb madman, unaffected by all kinds of bodily mistreatment. Seeing him like a madman, wandering naked with long hair and a long beard, less intelligent children and men in the street used to spit on him and urinate on his body. He used to lie in his own stool and never move, but his stool was aromatic, like fragrant flowers, and a saintly person would recognize him as a Paramahamsa, one in the highest state of human perfection. One who is not able to make his stool fragrant should not, however, imitate Emperor Rishabhadev. The practice of Jata Yoga was possible for Rishabhadev and others on the same level of perfection, but such an uncommon practice is impossible for an ordinary man. The real purpose of Jata Yoga, as mentioned here in this verse, is prashanta karana, or subduing the senses. The whole process of yoga, under whatever heading it may be, is to control the unbridled material senses and thus prepare oneself for self-realization. In this age specifically, this Jata Yoga cannot be of any practical value, but on the other hand, the practice of Bhakti Yoga is feasible because it is just suitable for this age. The simple method of hearing from the right source, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, will lead one to the highest perfectional stage of yoga. Rishabhadev was the son of King Nabhi and the grandson of King Agnidra, and he was the father of King Bharat, after whose name this planet Earth was called Bharatvarsha. Rishabhadev's mother was also known as Meru Devi, although her name is mentioned here as Sudevi. It is sometimes proposed that Sudevi was another wife of King Nabhi, but since King Rishabhadeva is mentioned elsewhere as the son of Meru Devi, it is clear that Meru Devi and Sudevi are the same person under different names. Text 11. The Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the supersoul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out from his nostrils. Whoa. Purport. The Vedic hymns are generally meant for sacrifices performed by fruitive workers who want to satisfy the demigods to achieve their fruitive result. But the Lord is the personified sacrifices and personified Vedic hymns. Therefore, one who is directly a devotee of the Lord is a person who has automatically both served the purposes of sacrifices and pleased the demigods. The devotees of the Lord may not perform any sacrifice or may not please the demigods as per Vedic injunctions, and still the devotees are on a higher level than the fruitive workers or the worshippers of different demigods. Text 12. At the end of the millennium, Satyavrata, the future Vaivasvata Manu, would see that the Lord in the fish incarnation is the shelter of all kinds of living entities, up to those in the earthly planets. Because of my, Brahma's, fear of the vast water at the end of the millennium, the Vedas came out from my mouth, and the Lord enjoys those vast waters and protects the Vedas. Purport. During one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus, and at the end of each Manu, there is devastation up to the earthly planets, and the vast water is fearful even to Brahma. So in the previous life of Vaivasvata Manu, such devastation would be seen by him. There would be many other incidents also, such as the killing of the famous Shankasura. This foretelling is by the past experience of Brahmaji, who knew that in that fearful, devastating scene, the Vedas would come out from his mouth, but that the Lord, in his fish incarnation, would save not only the Vedas, but also all living entities, namely the demigods, animals, men, and great sages. Text 13. The primeval Lord then assumed the tortoise incarnation in order to serve as a resting place, pivot, for the Mandara mountain, which was acting as a churning rod. The demigods and demons were churning the ocean of milk with the Mandara mountain in order to extract nectar. The mountain moved back and forth, scratching the back of Lord Tortoise, who, while partially sleeping, was experiencing an itching sensation. How wonderful. Purport. Although it is not in our experience, there is a milk ocean within this universe. Even the modern scientist accepts that there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of planets hovering over our heads, and each of them has different kinds of climatic conditions. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam gives much information which may not tally with our present experience, but as far as Indian sages are concerned, knowledge is received from the Vedic literatures, and the authorities accept without any hesitation that we should look through the pages of authentic books of knowledge, Shastra Chakshurvat. So we cannot deny the existence of the ocean of milk as stated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam unless and until we have experimentally seen all the planets hovering in space. Since such an experiment is not possible, naturally we have to accept the statement of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as it is, because it is so accepted by the spiritual leaders, like Sridhar Swami, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, and others. The Vedic process is to follow in the footsteps of such great authorities, and that is the only process for knowing that which is beyond our imagination. The primeval Lord, being all-powerful, can do whatever he likes, and therefore his assuming the incarnation of a tortoise or a fish for serving a particular purpose is not at all astonishing. Therefore we should not have any hesitation whatsoever in accepting the statements of the authentic scriptures like Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The gigantic work of turning the milk ocean by the combined effort of the demigods and the demons required a gigantic resting ground or pivot for the gigantic Mandara hill. Thus, to help the attempt of the demigods, the primeval Lord assumed the incarnation of a gigantic tortoise swimming in the ocean of milk. At the same time, the mountain scratched his backbone as he was partially sleeping, and thus relieved his itching sensation. Text 14. I think we'll stop here. It's almost 8 o'clock. It's amazing how fast the time goes when we read. Huh? So we'll stop here, and we'll start tomorrow at text 14, and hope to hear the reflections of the assembled sages for our edification and transcendental pleasure. Hare Krishna.
First is from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Jai Maharaj, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada in your daily reading service of Srila Prabhupada's books. Hare Krishna to all lucky members who are hearing the matchless gifts of Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Well, they're not my gifts, they're Srila Prabhupada's gifts. You know me, I'm just a peon delivering the mail. Thank you. But I try to control myself and not make comments during the reading so that Srila Prabhupada can speak for himself to all of us. I'll take that much credit. Hare Krishna.
From Bhakta Christopher.
Hare Krishna Bhakta Christopher.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada.
From Rati Manjari.
Haribo Rati.
She says, Jai Guru Maharaj, onwards and upwards by daily progress.
Hare Krishna.
And there's something here from Braj Vallabha.
From Braj Vallabha. Is just down the street.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Does this mean that Lord Brahma has seen all the incarnations when they appear in this universe?
Yes. Lord Brahma knows everything that happens in the universe, past, present, and future. He's described by Srila Prabhupada as almost on the platform of Krishna. but he's not Krishna, obviously, because he became bewildered by Krishna's mystic power, as we read about in the 13th chapter of the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Brahma Mohan Lila, the bewilderment of Lord Brahma. But Brahma is, different than all the other demigods. He's in another plane of existence. They all have to come to him when they have problems they can't solve. And then he gets the opportunity to approach Lord Vishnu in the ocean of milk, on the shore of the ocean of milk, and receive the instructions to the demigods on behalf of the Lord. So he knows everything. Hare Krishna.
And from Bhaktarupa?
Yes, Bhaktarupa.
He says, thanks for reading, Maharaj. Really appreciated the topic of tonight's reading, as myself and Bhakta Alice were discussing the subject just moments before you went live.
Oh.
Prabhupada is so clear in his breakdown of the topic of lust. We've previously heard Prabhupada describe sex desire as an annoying itch. I'm sure many practicing brahmacharis would appreciate if you could speak on how best to tolerate this itch and how to avoid the soldiers of Cupid sent by the envious demigods. Thanks.
Well, I don't think we have to worry so much about the soldiers being sent by the envious demigods in our place and time. We have to be more advanced than we are to deserve that special benediction. But you want me to speak about how to avoid. Well, I mean, the simple, plain truth is that one must learn to tolerate that itch. And the first rule is that you don't scratch it. You scratch the itch increases, and eventually, for instance, if you have a mosquito bite or some bug bite and you start to scratch it, if you keep scratching it, it can break the skin, it can get infected, and you can lose an arm or a leg or a hand or finger. But if you don't scratch it, eventually it goes away. So that is the analysis. It is a knowledge, and we heard a good section of the knowledge just now in our reading tonight. We have to understand what the purpose of the creation is and what the natural laws are that govern these things. And we have to be trained. It was very clear in the purport that the brahmachari needs to be trained. If you try to associate with women without being trained, then you will certainly become influenced and affected and a victim of the material energy. So we need to, I'm a advocate and a strong advocate that all the male devotees that join the movement should be brahmacharis, and all the females that join the movement that are not married, they should be brahmacharinis. The ashram doesn't exist really in the Vedic culture, but Prabhupada adjusted things. We can't imitate. He made it very clear that we're not going to make any more adjustments than he made. He brought the number of rounds that we need to chant in order to become fully purified from 64 to 16, for instance. He allowed women to stay in the same ashram under separate, facilities, of course, in the temples, in our movement, to facilitate the spreading of Krishna consciousness, and to adapt to the cultural, the differences from one country to the next. But if we follow Krishna's advice, Mami parta viprashrityu, yepisyu papajoneya, striyo vaisha tata shudras, tepiyanti padam gatim. Then even if we're a shudra or woman or vaisha, and we follow the principles of devotional life, devotional service, then we can attain the supreme destination. So Krishna says in the Gita, Yat yatva na punar moham, evam yasyasi pandava, yena bhutan yasheshani, drakshasyat manyato mayi. When we've actually received this knowledge from the spiritual master, we will see that every living being is but a part of the supreme personality, the supreme living being, or, in other words, Krishna says that they are mine. So we have to be trained to see the opposite sex as belonging to Krishna. If we actually see the opposite sex as belonging to Krishna, then we won't feel like exploiting for our sense gratification. This comes by practice, by association with the Gita and the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and other transcendental literatures given to us by Srila Prabhupada, and constant engagement in devotional service. The more we stay active in devotional service, the more we become protected, the more we try to chant our rounds without offense, we become protected, and the more we render devotional service to the deities and the Vaishnavas and spread the movement to others according to our capacity and situation, then we'll be protected. Everyone experiences the natural law of nature. If there's a room full of men and one woman enters, the atmosphere changes automatically. Lord Chaitanya said, if I see a piece of wood shaped in the attractive form of a young woman, he felt a change in his body. If Lord Chaitanya said that, what to speak of us? Everywhere you go, you see big pictures and advertisements, advertising anything and everything, with a half-naked woman or lusty-looking woman. So we have to know the rules of the game. We have to know the rules of the game. If we don't want to go through that very difficult situation, especially in this age, where no one's following principles, the entanglement is so all-pervasive and so intense, very difficult. But it can be overcome by practice, by tolerance, by sincerely engaging in devotional activities and becoming absorbed, becoming engaged constantly in devotional service. There's no shortcut, there's no pill you can take. Hare Krishna.
This is from Aravind and Meenal from the Atma Lounge.
Aravind and Meenal, oh, so nice to hear from you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances. Thank you so much for your daily nectar.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I remember you very fondly, and hope to see you soon.
from Anandamurti Devi Dasi.
Yes, Anandamurti.
Dear Guru Maharaj and all assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for today's reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Today I found that many wonderful pastimes are happening on this earth planet by the Supreme Lord and His devotees.
Yes, so they are. And we can be there by hearing them from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
From Daitari Hari.
Daitari Hari, Prabhu Ki Jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks again for tonight's reading. Just wondering, in the point we heard in the purport to text 8, where we heard that to please his pure devotees, Vishnu gave Dhruva his desired benediction. I understand that Dhruva was an extremely exalted devotee, but how is it that a pure devotee would request a material benediction? Please forgive me if this is an offensive question, as Dhruva is far more exalted than I have ever been.
Well, he was exalted, but he wasn't a pure devotee until after he reached perfection. So he was insulted by his stepmother, and because he's Kshatriya, he was a very exalted Kshatriya. A Kshatriya is in the mode of passion, and when they're challenged, they respond very strongly. That's their nature. Just like Krishna instructed Arjuna, you're wanting to go away from the battle because it's going to be problematic, you think, but by your nature you're going to engage in this activity anyway, so you might as well do what I want you to do. But when Dhruva Maharaj saw the Lord, he gave up all his material desires. But the Lord is so kind that even though Dhruva gave up that desire, and what was the desire? To have a kingdom greater than his father and grandfather, which means his father was Swayambhuva Manu, or Uttanapad, and his grandfather was Swayambhuva Manu. So, and I think he asked also for a bigger, or a better kingdom than Brahma. So anyway, in any case, the Lord, knowing that desire was there before, he fulfilled it anyway, even though Dhruva didn't want it anymore. That's the answer to the question. Hare Krishna.
From Subbarao Rajagopal.
Yes, Subbarao, Rajagopal.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the glorious daily reading service. The statement by Srila Prabhupada in 2.7.10 is potent. Quote, the simple method of hearing from the right sources, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, will lead one to the highest perfectional stage of yoga. We are able to hear thanks to your daily reading. Daily readings, Ki Jai.
Haribol. Thank you so much. I noted that also. I made a point of that when I was going to mention it later. Thank you for bringing it up, Hare Krishna.
And more from Daitari Hari.
Daitari Haridas, Hare Krishna.
We also heard about Jada Yoga, or the voluntary acceptance of pain to learn detachment. Are the Naga Babas who perform severe austerities today, some of which involve pretty gruesome mutilations, actually practicing Jada Yoga, or are these practices demoniac?
Well, it says in the Gita that if we torture our body without the purpose, without a proper purpose, or in any case, it's not that austerity means pain. Tapasya doesn't mean pain. Tapasya means heat. There's a rule in the Shastras that if you are doing Govardhan Prikrama, because we do with bare feet, Govardhan Prikrama, at least we're supposed to. If you become in pain, then you're supposed to stop your Prikrama. Go back to where you're staying, take care of it, and then go back to where you left off, and then continue Prikrama. So it's not that austerity means pain. Krishna doesn't want us to be in pain, but he likes us to take difficulty. It means heat. It means the heat of doing something that is you wouldn't normally do. You know, that you voluntarily take some inconvenience. But it doesn't necessarily mean pain. There's nothing in the revealed scripture that describes that you should give pain. So no, if the Nagabhavas you're talking about are mutilating themselves, then they are not following Jada Yoga. Although the word Jada means mundane. So Jada Yoga means material. It's a materialistic yoga. So they may take some undue austerity, but they won't get love of God by doing that. Because you can't satisfy Krishna by torturing your body. And Krishna says in the Gita, torturing the body, yourself, and the super soul inside the body, having to watch all this nonsense. Hare Krishna.
From Gauranga Gopal.
Gauranga Gopal, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I really appreciated this part of text 8's purport. Quote, a serious personality can thus achieve the highest perfection of meeting the Lord and attain his objective simply by being guided by a pure devotee who automatically approaches by dint of one's serious determination to meet the Lord by all means. Unquote. We hear that in one moment we can attain perfection. Maharaj Katwanga did it in a moment and Dhruva in only 6 months. And we also hear that Prabhupada promised us that by following his instructions for his books, in only one lifetime we can also achieve perfection.
Well, thank you very much. That's a very nice reflection. But it's not a mechanical rule. It's not a mechanical law. If a person has done a lot of devotional service in previous lives, he may take it very easily and get perfection very easily. But that's not the general rule. The general rule is it takes time and practice and the perfection of sadhana bhakti. Hare Krishna.
And from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. The position of Lord Brahma is truly exalted, and he is the head of our sampradaya. I wonder sometimes why we do not worship Lord Brahma more profoundly or separately. Would you please elaborate?
He was cursed. He was cursed by Saraswati because one time he was going to perform a sacrifice and his wife wasn't there for some reason. I don't remember the reason, but he asked someone else to come and sit on her behalf, and she became angry and cursed him that he wouldn't be worshipped very much. But there are a couple of places I think in Pandharpur and maybe one other place. There are also deities of Brahma in Thailand, you know, in their wedding invitations and things like that. They have a form of Lord Brahma, and you see him in public places also. But in terms of worship, in terms of, you know, standard worship, you know, he's not worshipped very much due to this curse. Hare Krishna. Therefore, it doesn't pay to displease anyone. Hare Krishna.
From Daitari Hari.
Yes, Daitya Hari Hari.
He said, sorry if my questions are a bit off the mark tonight. Those are the main things that caught my attention tonight, unfortunately. Hopefully I'll be in better consciousness for the next reading.
That's okay. This is questions that answer people's doubts or answer people's questions that don't ask very many questions. Hare Krishna. It's fine.
From Gauranga Gopal.
Yes, Gauranga Gopal.
Also a quick question. I wasn't sure when I heard in the text, but if Dhruva Maharaj's planet is eternal, therefore obviously it obviously existed before it was given to Dhruva Maharaj, right?
Yes.
But did it manifest in the material world just for Dhruva, or was it already there all along?
It was already there. It was given to him.
From Jagamohan.
Yes, Jagamohan.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you for your reading and for your post-reading dialogue. The desire for lust is so strong, and in this age it's being exploited with precision. Thank you for sharing your understanding on best ways to counteract this obstacle. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and the assembled devotees.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada's purports. He tells it like it is.
And from Rasika Shiromani.
Rasika Shiromani, Hare Krishna.
He says, Hare Krishna.
Well, Hare Krishna to you too.
And from Rati Manjari.
Yes, Rati.
She says, wow, so serious. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for these wonderful questions and wonderful reflections today. They were particularly adequate for the subject matter that was discussed. It was heavy, and it should be heavy, because the material world is heavy. And to get out of this material world, you have to become heavy. Mm-hmm. Heavy with knowledge. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic, as Lord Brahma continues to glorify the Lord by describing the various incarnations. A sample of them. They are unlimited. You can't describe them all. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.